you've done the journaling, Sovereign Sister, you've named the pattern, you went to the talk therapy, you even understand where your pain comes from. And still, your body hasn't gotten the memo. You wake up gripping in sweat, almost like a lion is ready to pounce and eat you, even though there's no lion there. I remember those days. Or maybe your low back holds all this tension that keeps coming back. There's a tiredness underneath the tiredness that no amount of sleep seems to ever reach. Maybe you look calm on the outside, but something inside of you, in your body, is still scanning for what's wrong or for the next shoe to drop. What if this isn't failure? What if this isn't lack of discipline? What if it isn't just a spiritual problem? What if your body is actually carrying an energy program that has been running long before you were born that you can't talk your way out of, and that no amount of insight is going to change it? That is what we are here to talk about today. So, welcome back, Sovereign Sister, to the Sovereign Sister Movement podcast. I am Veronica Barragan, trauma informed Kundalini yoga therapist and founder with God of the Sovereign Sister Sanctuary, an online virtual sanctuary for your soul where we disrupt patterns of generational trauma, healing 7 generations before you and after you. And this week, we're back with our 10 body series because you're not just a physical body. You are pure energy, and there are 10 layers of energy that the great yogis from the lineage of Kundalini yoga created, developed with God, a system of energy that keeps not only each of these layers of who you are healthy, but beyond that, because yoga, beyond healing you, what it does is it reveals you. It allows you to connect to God. Yoga is union with God. And this week, we're going to talk about the physical body because the physical body seems to be a huge blockage for many on their journey of not just healing, but spiritual awakening. You are here to come into union with God in the physical body. The problem here is that we don't understand what the physical body is. And today, we're going to break it all down because your physical body is pure energy. And this is why we cannot treat symptoms. We got to get to the root cause, the energy field. We have to reorganize that in order for the physical body to not stay ill. Now, I'm going to give you the full picture of what the physical body means. We're going to look at it from both the Kundalini Yoga therapy perspective, the energetics, the science, specifically today, what is known as meridians, which is our rivers of energy that flow through the entire physical vessel. But we're also going to look at it from a spiritual psychotherapy perspective through the teachings of Jesus Christ, because we have to understand that the body is not only who we are, but also that it is not a blockage or an impediment between the union between you and God, and also you, your brothers, your sisters, your parents, everybody around you. We have to understand first that the physical body, though, is sacred. It is a temple. It is a sanctuary. But you are not the body. It is a living human form that houses the soul. That's what your body is. It is the vessel through which enlightenment becomes real, which is your birthright. And enlightenment does not happen outside of the body. It happens within the body. And I'm not talking about theoretical or spiritual bypassing. I'm talking about your birthright to, in this body, come into union with God. And we're going to talk about why we don't do that. The key to this body, its medicine, its mastery, is actually how you use it. First, keeping it balanced, and I'll explain what that is. Balance in the body, in the mind, in your diet, in your exercise, balance in work and rest and play. And all of you are going to be like, don't you think I want that? Don't you think I've struggled with that all my life? Well, it's not a willpower, or you're not weak or not disciplined enough. This has to do with patterns of generational trauma and chronic stress. And also, we have to understand that the body is actually to be used as a vessel of communication of love. And when we are not using it for that, that is when we actually become ill. And this is why we need to understand that if our physical body is weak, or we feel weak, or we feel like our body cannot support our needs, like you're dragging yourself through your own life, like just existing takes everything you have, then we have to work through the not symptoms, but through the actual root cause, this energy field that we're going to talk about today. Because also, if you think about it, there also is a possibility where you find yourself obsessing over your physical appearance, over your abilities, over how things look on the outside. That's also an imbalance. Might not look as loud or maybe even more socially acceptable, but you're still disconnecting yourself because you're putting your identity in the physical body. And the whole thing is that we have to balance that out, because when your physical body does become balanced and strong, meaning in the energy fields, something else happens entirely. All areas of your life come into alignment, and we get blocked a lot because we are attached to the body. How many people are afraid to basically die? And why are people afraid to die? Because they think they are a body and they haven't learned how to live. And why haven't they learned how to live? It's not because they're weak. It is because of systemic trauma, generational trauma, colonization, war, genocide, the things that this illusion of the world, which is known as Maya, is comprised of, that we need to learn to go above and beyond. So I'm not talking about self-indulgence, I'm not talking about fanaticism. What we're talking about here is the gift that comes when you realize that you're not a body, but that your body is an incredible sanctuary, an energy field that can absolutely be restored and be used as a place called our home for the soul to express itself fully, which ultimately is what nirvana, enlightenment, satori is actually all about. And also to be using the body for what it is to be used for love, to meet other people at their level, so that you yourself can elevate them. You think of your body as a sanctuary. You wake up every morning, like I see it. I meditate every single day, Kundalini Yoga sadhana practice, Kundalini Yoga with meditation. And for me, that is like waking up and opening up the windows in the sanctuary, my body, letting the light come in. That's what meditation is: mantra, sound, and breathing, moving the dust, right? And then when I go out into the world, this sanctuary has a relationship with other people around me, and people then feel safe in my energetic presence. It's like they're entering into the sanctuary. And why do they feel safe? Well, because I opened the windows, I cleared out the cobwebs. That's what we do with our daily practice. But if we don't have that daily practice, then not only do we not feel safe in the body, and we are then getting sick, but other people also sense that. Your energy speaks louder than words, and your body, as much as you want to cover it up or make it more beautiful or pretend like nothing is happening, we're in the age of Aquarius where your energy is gonna say the entire truth. And people can read that and people can understand it. So we are here then to reorganize the energy field within the physical vessel so that we can step into this world with sovereignty. And that's why this episode is for the sovereign sister who is tired of managing her symptoms instead of restoring flow, the woman who, especially whose body has been on guard for so long that she doesn't even know what being calm or at peace or off guard even feels like. Very common, believe me, I was there for many years. Also, for the sovereign sister who is the first in her family to say, you know what, this pattern ends here. So we're going to look at it again through two lenses: Kundalini Yoga therapy, the physical body as an energetic system that's built on meridians. And specifically today, we're going to talk about the kidney meridian, because this is where our ancestral generational patterns are actually stored. And we're going to look at a practice today that is actually very simple, something you can do for 1 to 3 minutes a day, that is going to restore the flow of energy in the physical vessel to allow you to disrupt these patterns of generational trauma. Now, we're also going to look at it, like I said, from Jesus Christ's perspective, Christ consciousness, and what Jesus teaches about why the body actually holds fear in the first place, and what your ego, which is the programming of your mind, is actually doing with the body, and how the body becomes the very means by which we return to our right mind, meaning to truth, to going beyond perception. And perception is always built from our experiences, and our experiences are not always necessarily of the love and of light. Many times there are very dark experiences that we go through. And so we're going to look at both lenses today so that we can truly understand it holistically, body, mind, and spirit. So welcome back. And thank you all so much for liking, for hitting that share button with other community members, with other sisters. Please also drop a comment below if this is resonating. Also, if you have any questions specifically about the physical body as we continue this conversation and generational healing, please also drop those questions in the comments and I will get back to them as soon as possible. But thank you so much for joining our movement and for being an incredible, powerful, sovereign sister, giving yourself the permission to actually go above limiting patterns. So let's get right into it. So, first and foremost, the physical body is energy. It's energy. If you were to get a telescope, you would look at all aspects of your body, there would be a vibration of energy. In fact, everything in this world is energy. Even the chair you're sitting on, it's created through the brain and the signals that we actually put out. But ultimately, everything in this world is constantly vibrating. Now, this is important to understand because in Kundalini Yoga, we understand the physical body not just through anatomy, which is it's cool. It's actually very amazing to understand like the muscles and the bones and the organs. As a Kundalini yoga therapist, I get to study both, learning about the different muscles and the organs and the bones and the impact of Kundalini yoga to all of these different structures. But I also have the incredible privilege of also learning and experiencing, because it's through my own practices that I've experienced these things. And then science confirms them. And I'm like, well, I had already experienced them, so I don't really need science to confirm what I'm experiencing. But a lot of people do want that confirmation from science. However, from a Kundalini Yoga therapy perspective, your body is not just a meat suit, it's energy. Specifically, we call this energy meridian points. We also call them nadis, which is basically a meridian is like a light energy pathway, and it is a subtle energy pathway where there's a lot of even current research in evidence-based medicine that suggests that even your fascia, which is the network, the connective tissue that wraps every organ, every muscle, every cell in your body, may even be connected to the actual anatomical basis for the meridian system. So the meridian system works very closely with the fascia, and the fascia, remember, is piezoelectric. It means what this means is that it's constantly sending signals to your physical body, and the reason why it's doing that is because it stores memory. So it stores memory of traumatic things you went through, physical abuse, emotional abuse, even sexual abuse. Those are all memories that are stored in the body. Even if you were raised in a family where there was a lot of fighting, divorce, addictions, things of that nature, the actual fascia stores those memories, and then that's sending signals to your body, which is then causing these meridian points, basically these rivers of energy, to not flow. And so this is actually kind of cool the way they're now connecting the fascia network with these meridian points. And we know them as nadis as well, but in Chinese medicine, which is I learned through my teacher. She's a Kundalini yoga therapist, but she's also a Chinese medicine doctor. And they use meridian teachings all across as it relates to healing in every aspect. And so this is why we can't just look at symptoms. So we got to look at what's happening energetically. And so, in other words, what I'm saying is that this is a physical force that impacts health, and simultaneously a subtle force that impacts your consciousness, the meridian system. So it's a physical force that impacts your health, but it's also simultaneously a subtle force that impacts your entire consciousness. So the key principle here is that energy, which is prana, merges with the breath and flows through these meridian pathways. And that flow sustains the organs. That flow sustains emotional regulation. That flow sustains consciousness in itself. So I'm sharing with you some photos here of what these meridians look like. These are from my school that I go to, the Guru Ramdas Center for Medicine and Humanology, and specifically from the book my teacher, Dr. Japakar Khalsa, who wrote Enlightened Bodies. So basically, imagine these flowing rivers of energy that are moving through all aspects of your body, of your organs, impacting each aspect of them. And here's what makes the meridian system very different from thinking about the body organ, from thinking about the body organ by organ. First, meridians actually act as a group. You have to, when you move one, all of them shift. And in Kundalini yoga, you probably have heard of acupuncture, right? Where it's like they get the needles and then they know exactly what points in your body are going to alleviate specific pain. They're not going to put the needle exactly where the pain is because that wherever the pain is connected to this meridian flow that isn't just in the area of the pain. In fact, going right into the pain, like getting massage, for example, for sciatica, is not a very good idea. In fact, with sciatica, you got to look at other meridian points that are affecting it. And typically with the sciatica, we're talking about the large intestine and other aspects of the meridians that actually if you were to massage your sciatic nerve, it would cause more damage. Why? Because there's other entry points we can move through where you can actually instead of massage or push, what you're doing is creating movement. And that is called acupressure. So everything you do in Kundalini yoga, like breath, like chanting mantra, or moving your legs in a specific way, your hands with mudra, that's going to activate specific rivers in your body that then are going to shift the energy field for healing. And I'm going to share with you today a practice to help you with that, especially with what we're going to cover today, which is the kidney meridian, which actually your kidneys is where ancestral reserves are held. So we'll get into that. But when you practice Kundalini yoga, breath, movement, right? All of these different things, you're not doing an exercise. You're not just stretching. You are influencing your entire living network. And a little bit goes a long way. And then the cumulative results of that network flowing freely is meaning consistent prana. You have a vital physical body, you have energy to do things. It's basically a very steady emotional state and an elevated attuned consciousness where you're not very narrow in your thinking. You have awareness of an expanded view of the world. A lot of this has to do with your nervous system and your brain, but that's what we're also restoring today. So the physical body, the fifth body, is the vessel through which all of this becomes expressed. So I want you to think of it this way. The meridians, think of them as rivers or the inner highway system. And the physical body is kind of like the landscape that they run through. So the physical body is like the mountain that the rivers run through. And when the physical body is balanced, meaning you're getting enough rest, right? You're getting high frequency foods, your stress levels. It's not that you don't have stress, it's that you every day have a practice to reduce the amount of stress or to alchemize the stress because your blood restores cortisol and adrenaline, which are stress hormones. Then what happens is that that's what balance means. So when your physical body, when there's balance, meaning you're not depriving your physical body of movement, of light, of beautiful foods, of resting even, because a lot of women are slave drivers to themselves, and the problem here is that the body will go into burnout, and the nervous system will crash, and then recovering from that is even harder, especially if we don't deal with the nervous system, if we don't deal with the meridian points, which is what we're talking about today. But when the physical body feels balance, when there's rest, when there's no like extreme in either direction of stress or not getting enough rest, then your meridians are going to do what they are here to do, which is allow the energy to move. Emotions are energy in motion. But if you don't have practices every day of meditation, of breathing, they don't move. And then you become depleted. And then you become chronically activated. Or you stay on running on survival patterns that were inherited. All the pathways are literally constricted, and you can't treat symptoms. You have to look at the meridian points. And the survival patterns from our ancestors, it's not like they chose them consciously. Genocide, war, and trauma, they didn't have the resources. They didn't have even the knowing. Even religious trauma caused a lot of martyrism with their ancestors, where they told them that suffering was of God. And that's because they were teaching them about the false God of the Bible. So we're not blaming, but we are understanding again. These are the things that many times we inherit, but that we can actually do something about. Now, here's where it becomes essential for women, especially those of you that are first time generational cycle breakers, because the body does not only carry your patterns, it also carries unprocessed energy of those who came before you. And this is why we work with the body, not just the mind, not just the soul, not just the story, not just, it's everything, right? It's body, mind, and spirit or soul. And so today I want to share with you specifically on the kidney meridian, which you'll see a photo of that here. But basically, the kidney meridian is very important because the kidney meridian, not only is it the water element, but it lives in your body. And imagine, I want you to imagine this, because the more that you practice Kundalini yoga, the more that you sense these meridians in your body. When I took my Kundalini yoga therapist class on the meridians, on the elements and meridians, we a part of my homework is not just like obviously the studying and all of that, but it's actually practicing kriyas, specific meditations, specific movements in the body that are going to give you specific results. We practice one for the this class that allows me to really become more aware and sense my own meridians. And that's what you're going to do with your own practice too. When you have prana moving through your system, you can become very sensitive in a way where you can sense illness, you can sense energy, you can sense everything, but you're also like very protected because your nervous system is regulated and you're not absorbing the energy. But just know that it's part of your practice for you to develop what some people might call like psychic gifts or what some people might call like cognitive gifts. First of all, I'm sure you were already born with them and you're just activating them because you're healing the trauma and the chronic stress. Second of all, we all have them. We all have these gifts. What we need to do is just through our practice develop the nervous system in the brain that allows us to access them. And so with the kidney meridian, this one's important because the kidneys, I don't know if you knew, but your left and right kidney, your left kidney is your ancestral reserves. So it's everything that your ancestors gave to you as an inheritance. I'm not talking about good and bad, I'm talking about the overall. Then the right kidney is kind of like your daily bank account of the way that you're supplying it and increasing its energy or decreasing, right? Based on how you live and your lifestyle and the chronic stress and the trauma. And so when we deplete ourselves in the right kidney because we don't have enough prana, because we're living under chronic stress, it starts to then take from the left kidney energy reserves. And that's when you're pulling from the ancestral stuff. And you don't want to go down to like zero on your reserves because that's what causes a lot of illness, depression, anxiety, all these different things. And when we talk about the kidneys, think about the kidneys actually govern fear, which is why do you think that a lot of children actually wet their beds when they're younger? One thing is the what's happening in their current life, obviously fear, but also they might be activating something that came from another generation. And it's not as important to know what it is and where it came from. What's more important is to understand what's happening so that you know how to respond to it. Because a child that wets their bed, it's not about basically getting them in trouble for that or giving them a timeout. They can't control it. And there's a fear program that's running through their system that needs to be released. So there is meditation and mantra for the child. In fact, we use a mantra, I would say, especially for a child, if the child's having like night sweats or nightmares, what that really means is also that the crown chakra is open. And there are absolutely energy imprints that happen when trauma happens in a house, and there are even unalivings and things of that nature, that trauma imprints into the field of the house. So some children, especially because they literally are like walking around like they're on a psychedelic trip because of all the DMT that's being secreted from the forehead. Basically, like they don't, there's no veil for them. And so a lot of children have access, if not all of them, to beyond the veil. And this can be very scary for them, especially if you're a parent that doesn't really know about these gifts, or you were a parent that your own parents told you not to pay attention to these gifts, or that you were weird because you had them. And I'm sure your parents did have those gifts as well. It's just that they may be carrying a witch's wound, right? That basically they were told they couldn't be themselves. And so children need protection in the crown chakra. And for them, maybe you're not going to get them to meditate, although I've taught children's classes about 5 years ago, and the youngest child was like 4. And actually, the younger they are, the more they remember the yoga, because they do the 22 poses of the limb of the yoga poses in the womb when you're pregnant with the baby. But for children, you can actually just play the mantra Satanama. I'll link one below here in the description that I actually like to use, and you can play that over the night so that the crown chakra is protected and the child is not impacted by the energies around the child. But that's why there's a lot of bedwetting for children, because the kidney meridians, first of all, the adrenal glands are right on top of the kidney meridians, and the adrenal glands are activated through stress, through fear, through trauma, and also through dehydration. So all that becomes a combination where it pulls on the kidneys, and then the kidneys then create this aspect of what is known as fear. And like I said, we have all of these reserves of the ancestral things we carry in the left meridian. So we're constantly pulling from that as well. Now, as it relates to the kidney meridian, when you know where the kidneys actually lie, but the actual kidney meridian, believe it or not, it begins at the sole of the foot. So again, if you have issues with your kidneys, we're not going to go right into the kidney. We might actually do things that are going to support your feet, the sole especially, because it's the sole of the foot. There's a point called the Yong Quan. It's called the bubbling spring, right in the arch of the foot. And from there, it travels up the inner ankle, up the inner leg, through the groin, up through the abdomen, along the front of the torso, and it continues all the way up to the chest. And each of the meridians actually is paired with another meridian. And the kidney meridian is paired with the urinary bladder. And this runs along both sides of the spine, from the inner corner of the eye, over the crown of the head, down the entire back of the body, behind both of your knees, and down both of your legs, all the way to the small toe. So together, these two meridians cover the water element. And the emotion held in the water element is fear. And it's not just personal fear. It's inherited fear. It's a deep cellular body level fear that passes through family lines without ever needing words. Epigenetics proves that we inherit more. Very few diseases are inherited from our ancestors, less than 1%. Bruce Lipton wrote an incredible book on epigenetics, and literally it's been proven. So you don't have to worry about physical disease because that comes after chronic stress, after having the same perception and emotions for a very long time, right? But we do inherit all these things, and they're deep in the cellular aspect of our body. And think of fear. Also, fear, we develop fear of authority if we grew up of basically with parents that were maybe depressed and they were not very nice. We would develop fear of being seen. A lot of us actually, because our parents never acknowledged us. We were never seen by them, not because they're evil. And a lot of you might argue and say, I wish you knew my parents. But really, truly is anybody who's acting from a level of pain and consciousness, we're talking about they've been through trauma too. And I'm not giving them an excuse because you might need to develop physical distance in order to basically not be abused anymore, right? But what I'm saying is that they're crying out for help, and it's not about you or your worth. It's about them and their pain. And so we develop a lot of different fear mechanisms within the physical structure, within the mind, within the spirit. We become afraid of making moves or making the wrong move. We become in fear of taking up space, fear of what people are gonna think about us. All of this is not just personality traits. They're actually literally survival adaptations. And they live in your entire meridian system. And so the kidneys, because they hold deep life force energy, what we sometimes hear known as Jing energy, the foundational reserves, that's why this is important. And when daily life consistently drains the body, chronic stress, and again, stress is not a bad thing, right? You could have stress from growing your business, from coming into a new relationship, all these different things. However, that doesn't mean that you stay in states of chronic stress. That's what your daily practice of Kundalini yoga meditation, your daily spiritual devotional work, then that's what helps you alchemize and release the stress. So it's us that do not have daily processes to change or rewire the nervous system and the brain. That's when it becomes chronic, and that's when it turns into complex post-traumatic stress. And that's where, when I'm saying life consistently draining the body and you not doing anything about it, then what happens is the system is going to pull from those deep reserves to compensate. And over time, depletion becomes your baseline. And it looks like what I just mentioned earlier in the podcast, waking up tired even after you slept 8, 10 hours. Again, this low back tension that always comes back no matter how many times you address it. Shallow breathing that you don't even notice you're doing. Then creates a lot of harm in the organs and in the spine. And feeling also on guard in moments that are actually safe. So there's a constant like undertow of I have to manage everything. And I promise you that this is not a character flaw at all. Basically, it's a system, it's a nervous system that has learned to survive. It was never taught how to restore. And so your body thinks it needs to defend you instead of repair you. Your body is very wise. Your immune system knows what to do, your nervous system knows what to do, your endocrine system knows what to do. I did podcast episodes on this. If you want to go check them out here on my YouTube channel, basically talking about each of the systems, how they're impacted by generational trauma, chronic stress, and how to heal them. So that's not the issue. It's the issue is that we have to basically restore the energy flow so that our body doesn't think that it constantly needs to defend us and so that it could start doing what it does right, which is repair us. And this is why we also need to understand that this gets passed down. The body does not need a dramatic event to learn to brace, actually. A mother who never rested because rest wasn't safe, because she had to pay the bills, because she had to basically work, that's that can be experienced as trauma. Think of a grandmother, your grandmother who maybe endured all this grief. Maybe there was a lot of unalivings and all these different transitions of her sons. I know both of my grandmothers went through a lot of stress because of that, and one of my grandmothers, she had to bury like six of her children before she transitioned. And that's I she so much grief, so much grief. And also having to learn to live in survival because she couldn't deal with the grief because she had to figure out how to like feed her children when grandpa wasn't there, right? So all of those things, like a family line that survived, that stayed quiet, basically all of those things cause the body to brace. And the body then absorbs these lessons. Do not relax. You gotta stay ready. You never know what's gonna happen. The other shoe's gonna drop. And a big part of that is because your brain becomes very hypervigilant when you live under long periods of chronic stress. So it's constantly scanning. Like you're really good at pattern recognition and you have some incredible psychic gifts, but you need to learn to channel that energy because what it does is it's creating a lot of paranoia. It's creating a lot of hypervigilance where you're like, when is that next shoe gonna drop? And because meridians acts as a group, remember we're talking about that. Every time you brace, you're compressing the lumbar spine directly along the kidney meridian's pathway. And it keeps the bladder meridian running the entire length of the back body in chronic compression. And remember, because meridians act as a group, when those two are constricted, the whole system feels it. Your body might be running on survival program that was written way before you were birthed. Because some epigenetic studies are showing that we're talking about not 7 generations back, they're saying 17. And again, it's not your fault. But what is true is that it is your responsibility and your birthright and your power to change it. And that's why you're here. So, how do we freaking change it? Well, one really powerful way you can change this, and it's a beautiful entry point that truly does not require a lot from you. It might feel a lot because you're moving emotions and you're moving energy, meaning it might feel overwhelming, but it really is the mind, which becomes much more calm and present as we continue to do this exercise and continue to rewire the nervous system and the brain because of the flow of the meridian, the kidney meridian that is now happening. And so, one way that you can actually clear the kidney meridians and not be depleted and not be working only with the ancestral reserves, especially if they're traumatic, is what we call in Kundalini yoga as life nerve stretch. And I think the name says it all, right? The life nerve. This is the pathway that runs the length of the inner leg directly along the kidney meridian's course, from the foot all the way to the torso. So when that nerve pathway is tight, if it's compressed or if there's stagnant energy there, the kidney meridian is not going to be able to flow freely. But when we open it, which is what life nerve stretch does, we are literally giving the energy a clear road to move through. The river can flow again. And it's actually very simple to do. You're gonna just sit on the floor and you're gonna stretch your legs out in front of you. So stretch them out, keep the two legs together, point your fingers up to the heavens, and then what you're gonna do is you're gonna reach forward and you're gonna try to grab your toes. If for some reason you cannot grab your toes, then just go to the ankles. If you can't grab your ankles, then go to the back of your knees or the front of the knees. If you can't grab the front of your knees, then you're just going to sit with your legs stretched out in front of you. So meet yourself exactly where you are. And the way that we do this is you're reaching forward, and if you're grabbing your toes, you can just like literally lock them with your pointer finger, and you're going to stretch your spine forward, not just folding the back. You want to lengthen through the entire whole spine. Now, holding on wherever you can hold on to, you're going to inhale. And as you inhale, you're going to tilt the head up, looking kind of towards the ceiling, and then gently stretching the back of the neck. And on the exhale, you're going to release the head back down toward the legs. So just continue moving your head with the breath in this rhythm. It's just back and forth, back and forth. Just be conscious with it and careful. You don't want to compress the vertebrae of the neck. This is a stretch. I don't want you to think of it as a crunch, like an abdominal crunch. And when you're doing this, you're gonna start slow. So you don't want to like overdo it, right? You want to just like find your rhythm and just paying very much attention to your spine. And as you do this, you're going to continue the movement. Inhale, tilting the head up, stretching the back of your neck. Continue to move your head with the breath and move down, breathing in and out powerfully. And you can, again, build the momentum if you need to move. You can actually move very fast with this one. So, first, create the structure and the balance, and then start doing that. And now you can actually practice this for 3 minutes. 3 minutes is all you need every day. Now, I will say for 40 days to really work through those kidney meridians, to build the reserves in the left and the right kidney, and also to bring back the flow of energy in your entire physical vessel. Because As you're bringing energy into this meridian, it's going to impact all the other meridians. And as you can see with this one, it's actually not that difficult to practice. And this is also going to hydrate your fascia. So your fascia, we just talked about it. It beyond water, which all of us should be drinking a lot of water as it is, because the kidneys are affected by that. But even adding minerals to your water. But beyond water, these type of movements, this is a much faster, quicker way to actually hydrate your fascia. And if you hydrate your fascia, because you got prana moving through it, then those memories are going to release themselves from the fascia. Some people go get fascia massages. This is the exact same thing you're doing. And so that's going to release those memories from the fascia. So it stops sending those signals to the physical vessel, right? To the brain, which is creating the perception. So it's very simple. You continue moving your head back and forth with using your breath as your rhythm. With this one, I am inviting you to close your eyes and to actually allow yourself to just focus at the middle of the forehead while you're moving back and forth. If it doesn't feel safe for you to close your eyes, then you can keep them open. Just try to keep your focus in one place so that you don't get dizzy. So you have to build that sovereignty and agency, and you meet yourself where you're at, even if you've been practicing for 50 years. So you're moving with your head, with the breath and the rhythm, and just be conscious. Be conscious. And what you're doing in this moment is actually not even complicated. You're stretching the inner leg where the kidney meridian runs. You're decompressing the low back where kidney meridian connects. And you're pumping prana through a pathway that fear and survival have been basically compressing. And again, possibly for generations. So this is not an exercise at all. This is energy medicine through the body. And that is why the live nerve stretch is your primary tool this week. This is something that you can start, like I said, for 3 minutes. The other thing is there are other daily restoration practices that you can start to do, even if this feels a little bit too much for you to begin with. A few things that are going to help you is obviously staying very hydrated because the hydration is going to impact your kidney meridians. It's going to impact your kidneys and your adrenal glands, which of course create more anxiety. A lot of people don't realize that their anxiety is coming from a state of point of dehydration. And we actually are more dehydrated in the wintertime than the summertime because summertime is hot. So everybody's like, let's drink water. Wintertime, it's like, I don't need water. I don't need water. So making sure that you're hydrated, whatever that means for you, is going to support your kidney meridians in a very big way. The other thing you can do is massage the soles of the feet even before bed because you're stimulating that bubbling spring that I was talking about, that entry point of the kidney meridian. And it's the body's most like restorative hour too in the nighttime, right before you fall asleep. And also, even bare feet on the earth. The kidney meridian begins at the sole of your foot. So you having direct contact with the earth completes this electrical circuit that the body was designed to use. There's a lot of science even now from grounding, earth grounding, and even hugging trees and how it changes your entire biofield, which is your aura. We're going to talk about your aura in a couple of weeks, so stay tuned. So in essence, these are things that are not woo-woo and they're not new age. These are ways for you to start an entry point. The other thing about the kidney meridian is getting to bed on before 10 p.m. at least 3 nights this week. The kidney and bladder meridians do their primary restoration work between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. So every late night is a direct withdrawal from the reserves that you're trying to rebuild. So try to get to bed at 10 before 10 p.m. is key. Also remember that your morning routine starts in the nighttime. So you're gonna need to develop boundaries, right, for yourself, where you're not touching your phone or you are going to bed at a certain time. Not touching your phone is important because the when you're looking at your phone in the nighttime, your brain doesn't know that with the light, your brain thinks it's daytime. And that's why people have insomnia and they can't fall asleep. So really creating a structure for yourself where you're gonna commit to going to bed at 9 p.m., especially at least 3 times of the week. Otherwise, you're going to be very depleted and more anxious. Remember, balance develops through repetition, never through intensity. So you want to start small, right? Even with the life nerve stretches, you can start with 3 minutes a day. You do that for a week for 3 minutes, then you can increase it for 5 minutes, right? But you don't want to self-sabotage. Now, there are a lot of things that block this work, but that dehydration, especially chronic mild dehydration, and consistently staying up past 10, running on adrenaline and calling it energy, calling fear discernment and never taking it to the body level, or trying to heal only through understanding while the body stays braced, those are the top ways that we block this work. The body, in order for you to heal body, mind, and spirit, you need way more than insight. We need the rivers to flow again. And that is what the life nerve stretch is going to give you. Now, we looked at the energetics of the physical body, but we have to look at that physical body through a layer that I promise you will change everything for you. Because the meridian work explains how energy moves or gets stuck in the physical body. But Jesus, through A Course in Miracles, tells us why the mind chose fear as the body's operating system in the first place. And once you understand this, my God, the generational healing journey becomes so precise, so accurate. But let's break it down so you understand it. Now, this is what Jesus Christ says in A Course in Miracles about the body. Jesus gives us a definition of the body that I think most of us have never even heard. And once you hear it, I promise that you will never be able to unhear it again. What Jesus says is that the body is a fence the Son of God imagines he has built to separate part of his self from other parts. So we think that the body is a fence. We don't see the body as a temple, as a sanctuary. Many times we also don't even acknowledge, but we think that the body's a prison. We think that it's not just a vessel. We think that it's a fence. And what Jesus says is that it is a fence that you built, but it was built by the mind, by the untrained mind. No one taught us how to train our mind when we were little. That's what meditation's for. So we keep our perceptions, and those perceptions run our life, which means we create a fence to protect ourselves. And the fence built by the mind also has the purpose to establish and maintain separation. It's not just from me, from other people, but from God. We are never separate from each other. Next week, when we talk about the Akashic with the arc line and the Akashic records and quantum physics, you're gonna know that you actually are never separate from each other. You're never separate from God. So the ego, which is the untrained mind, made the body to be a wall, a device to keep things out, especially love, a way for the mind to declare, hey, I'm here, but you're over there. And you and I are not the same. In fact, you're a sinner and I'm not. And we believe this because we believe in the God of religion, not the true God of love, the God of religion that judges us and that basically is going to tell us if you're going to go to hell or heaven, which doesn't exist. That's the false God of religion. Religion was created to control you and manipulate you. And so when you believe in the false God, then you believe that you have to protect yourself because you think that God is like a man that sits on a chair judging you all day and he's going to be mad at you. And then also if you think that you're separate from your brother and sister, then you believe that if as long as God looks at what that person is doing, that evil person, God won't look at what I'm doing. So the ego makes this programming, untrained mind made the body to be a wall, a device to keep things out and people out, especially love, a way for your mind to declare we're separate. And here's the part that lands so differently for sovereign women whose family lines were shaped by survival patterns. What is the fence keeping out? I already alluded to it, but I'm going to say it again. Love. A Course in Miracles, Jesus says, this is a course for you to remove the obstacles of the forever presence of love. That means that the only thing that is real is love in this world. And you're going to realize that I've heard many near-death experiences, and even through my own journey of plant medicine, Mother Ayahuasca in the Amazon jungle, it felt like a near-death experience for sure. And a lot of people that are in there have had near-death experience or they're actually dying. What do they see? They see the light, and all they see is love, love, love. I think Steve Jobs was quoted as saying that as he was dying. He was like, "It's so beautiful, it's so beautiful, it's so beautiful." That's the only thing that's real. But we come into these universities called the universe life, and no one taught us how to train the mind. So then we don't experience love, or we make all these blockages to love. We're actually very afraid of love. Isn't that wild? Like you think you're afraid of your darkness, you're actually afraid of your light. And so the love, we use the body as a way for love to not exist within us and also for us to not share love with others. And that's when we get sick. Jesus is very specific in the course about this. He says, "For within this fence, he thinks that he is safe from love." Like you are so afraid of love. Think about growing up in chronic stress or trauma. You can't trust love, right? Because it wasn't consistent. Or if there was any kind of love, maybe it came with conditions and these special relationships. Like even if like you came home with the A and your mom was like, "That's not good enough." It's not because she hated you, it's because she was probably worried about trauma that she had gone through since she was little, how to pay the bills and all of that. So then there's a special relationship, meaning if someone gives me love, like a mom that was depressed, then she expects something back. And that's not real love, right? So Jesus is very specific that within this fence, we think we are protecting ourselves from other people, but we're not. What we're doing is we're protecting ourselves from love. And why would the ego build a body to keep love out? That's wild, right? Because love undoes the separation. Love dissolves the illusion that we're isolated, that we're individual, that we're alone. Love draws the fragmented parts of the self back together. And to the ego, that dissolution feels like death. That's why we become so addicted to our story. So the ego manufactures a body. It believes it is a body. You believe you are a body and uses it to prove over and over that separation from God is real. See, the thing about trauma is if you've been through trauma, like Dr. Gabor Mate says, he says trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happened inside of you. So the way I understand that is through Jesus's teachings that you create all these false identities inside of you of I'm not good enough, I'm broken, I'm unworthy, I'm a sinner, all these different things. So those are all false identities. Just the way we think, when you think you're a body, that's a false identity because you're not a body. You're an infinite soul having this human experience. And the whole thing about this is that the ego builds the body to keep love out because if it didn't have those false identities, it wouldn't be here anymore. Part of your meditation journey, the life nurse stretch that I shared with you, is these memories fall off of the body. So you don't have to talk about them, but it dissolves the illusion that we're ever alone and that we actually can always go back to asking God for help. And that's why the ego doesn't want you to become aware of the ego because that dissolution feels like death. And so love undoes the separation, the ego fights it hard. And it's even though your ego is not your amigo, it's also not your enemy. It's just an untrained program mind. That's it. Imagine, I mean, I want you to think about it. Have you ever experienced a moment in a moment of deep love or connection? Have you ever experienced like a sudden surge of fear? Like, what if this goes away? What if something happens? Or even a feeling of like almost losing yourself. That's the ego's response to love. That ego never wants you to fully find it. So it builds the fence, the body, and it calls the fence you. And then you put barriers around you. So the body, Jesus goes further because he says that the body is actually a dream. And he's not using this as a metaphor or poetry. It's a dream born of fear, made to keep running fear. And here is the line that matters the most for this conversation. Made to be fearful, must the body serve the purpose given it? But we can change the purpose that the body will obey by changing what we think that it is for. So I want to read that again slowly because this brings healing to all aspects of body, mind, and spirit. Made to be fearful, must the body serve the purpose given it? But we can change the purpose that the body will obey by changing what we think that it is for. So, what is the body really for? The body has to be given a purpose, and we can change the purpose. So, the body was made by fear to run fear, but the body's not locked into that program forever because the mind can choose again. You might not be able to change what happened to you in the past, but you can change your perception about it. And your perception about it now might be like, I deserve this. Where was God? I had a horrible childhood, all these things. But a shift in perception is not only am I authored and created by God and nothing can change that, but this person did what this person did, not because of my worth, not because I attracted it, not because I deserved it, not because God wasn't there, but because that person was crying out for help. And that's liberating. Absolutely liberating. That's what I mean by healing at the level of the mind, shifting perceptions. Because when you can do that, when the mind chooses again, that's what the spiritual psychotherapy of A Course in Miracles is. Guess what? It changes the purpose for the body. The body's going to follow. The body is to be used as a vessel for love. And that's why the life nerve stretch matters beyond the physical, because you're not just opening the kidney meridian, you're making a decision. This body serves flow now, not bracing. And you might be the first one in your entire generation to do this. In fact, how this shows up across generations is if love in your family line felt dangerous, the body was trained to guard against it. If love meant obligation, control, or harm, the body learned that closeness is a threat. If love was withheld as punishment, what does the body learn? To brace before connection even arrives. And if love meant silence, your throat is going to close. If love meant enduring, the nervous system never leaves the alert mode. So the mind in each generation learned, and each generation learned, distance is safer, control is safer, bracing is safer. And so the body was given a crazy assignment. Prove that separation is the truth, stay behind the fence. And that's why the kidney meridian that we just talked about, that's what the kidney meridian has been holding. This is what shortens your breath. This is what braces the lower back. This is why the reserves deplete, because the body has been on guard for generations. Running a program it was handed before you even had anything to say about it. So the body, and this is where Jesus really offers the deepest relief. The body itself is actually neutral. It doesn't have an agenda. It has no power over your mind. It is not inherently fearful. It is not inherently a prison. The ego, which is the programming, made it fearful, but the ego does not have to have the final word. That's why we have these tools. Jesus says love does not condemn the body. Love can use the body lovingly. So when the body is given a new purpose, not to prove separation from God, not to keep love out, not to demonstrate that we're alone, but to communicate, to connect, to reach, everything shifts. There are people that I know that going through a terrible disease and they decided to go and spread love, and that's what healed them. Now, it might be difficult, obviously, if you're going through a terrible disease and you don't have the energy to go out and donate your time and all of that. So then what do you use the body for? Still love, but give yourself love. because some people have illness and it could be as small as the flu or something else, and they are ashamed, they're blaming themselves, they don't know what has gone wrong, they're blaming others, they're thinking they're cursed. So now you're still not using the body for love. When you surrender, that's 95% of the healing journey, when you accept. So the body is the means by which God's Son returns to sanity. You actually cannot become enlightened, come into union with God outside of your body. And that's why Jesus has to say that the body, which the ego made as a fence to keep love out, becomes under love's purpose the very means of you coming home. And then this goes back also to your nervous system and brain, because through Kundalini Yoga meditation, when you're rewiring the nervous system and brain, you get out of the addiction of adrenaline and cortisol. And when you're addicted to cortisol and adrenaline, which are the stress hormones, because that's what you've always learned, you're creating drama constantly to feel those kicks. And you better believe you do not feel safe in the sanctuary, in the temple, in the body. So we have to shift the perception, take out the garbage from the mind. We have to release the way the body keeps score of trauma through movement, through breath, through that life nerve stretch I just gave you. And through those two pathways, now you have the root cause healing, not just symptoms. And what it looks like actually to change, this is not a mystical event that happens once. It's a daily, deliberate, small direction. Every day I have my sadhana practice. And it's not because I'm forever broken. Healing is not about fixing anything. Healing is about evolving beyond patterns. That's what healing is. And right now, especially my growth and my personal business life is completely skyrocketed because I have the vitality, I have clarity. So then I need continued vitality, energy to then execute, to then put it out into the world, what God is asking me to create, right? And that's why it's daily. We call this in Kundalini Yoga Japji. So it's daily Kundalini Yoga meditation, that nerve stretch that I just gave you for 40 days, at least 3 minutes a day, daily spiritual devotion to A Course in Miracles, to the Second Coming of Christ. That's another book that we're actually going to start studying in the community as well, which is written by Yogananda. So when the body, and what happens when we go through depression? We hide. And when the body is used to hide, it stays in fear. When the body is used to extend, it becomes holy. A breath taken all the way down while you're present, instead of right here at the upper chest, there's 3 diaphragms. Most of us are breathing up here. Even a hand placed on the low back with care instead of frustration. Even you choosing to rest, not because you earned it, but because rest is an act of love for the vessel. Or even being willing to see things through God's eyes. Maybe you don't know how to forgive, and it's not a linear process at all. But the real miracle is you being willing to see things differently, being willing to see things through the light, through the eyes of love. That opens up for Source God to come help you. So the choice to be willing to forgive, a choice to see things differently, not by abandoning yourself, but by refusing to let the wound live in your fascia, in your meridian system forever. And so whenever we use the body for this love, and think about the life nerve stretch too, when you're using the breath and the movement, now you're giving yourself love, right? You're dedicating. When I'm in my classes, the spiritual psychotherapy classes, A Course in Miracles, or when I'm in my own practice, that's sacred time for me. And that sacred time actually is what creates more productivity in my regular life, in my day-to-day life. So that's you loving yourself. You choosing to be the first time generational cycle breaker, you choosing to join us at the Sovereign Sister Sanctuary, to join the movement, that's love. And these are absolute like physical acts for sure. They're spiritual too, they're energetic. And that's why Jesus teaches that when the body is used to reach toward another or to extend love to yourself, to others, to help someone walk along the road, to extend rather than withdraw, now the body becomes holy. And it's not because the body is special, it's because The purpose of the body changed. Jesus says that the Son of God or daughter of God extends her hand to reach her brother and to help her or him walk along the road with him. And so now is the body holy. Now it serves to heal the mind that it was made to kill. Isn't that crazy? So Jesus closes this teaching of the body with something worth sitting with this whole week. Your safety lies in truth and not in lies. Love is your safety. Fear does not exist. False evidence appear real. Identify with love and you are safe. Identify with love and you are home. Identify with love and find yourself with a capital S. And we do this to our spiritual devotion. The body is a lie about who we are. It is not what we are. What we are is love. Expressed through this form, we are the light. In this time, in this lineage, in this world. And when we identify with the body, meaning we think we're a body, life becomes cramped. It becomes an attempt to protect ourselves. But when we identify with love, with the light, the body becomes a tool, a means for expressing the truth of what we are. And that shift, that entire re-identification, my God, it's not abstract. It changes your entire existence. It changes your breath. It lives in the soles of your feet on the earth. It lives in the life nurse stretch held with a long, powerful breath instead of avoided. It lives in the choice to stop running the fear program one more time, not just for you, but for 7 generations before and after you. So I'm going to leave you with a little bit of homework this week of actually practicing this life nurse stretch. Once a day, try to get out for 3. Actually, you can do 1 to 3 minutes. 1 to 3 minutes is more than enough. You're just stretching your legs straight in front of you. You're grabbing your toes and you're lengthening the spine forward. Now, if you yourself feel that there's a lot of structural changes that need to occur, then I would have you practice this for 40 days. Remember, you're inhaling, tilting the head up, stretching the back of the neck, exhaling as you're releasing the head down. And you're gonna just grab onto the toes or the whatever feels safer for you. So that is a very beautiful way to move the flows of meridians, and you can do that this week. You can even do it for this next 7 days. We have a new podcast episode that's coming out. You can start the new one then as well. But for the most powerful effect, you do want to stick to it for 40 days. So see how it feels in your body, in your mind, in your spirit, and you'll know if it's something that you need to continue for 40 days. I don't even have to tell you that. And remember that you're not just stretching a muscle, you're opening the pathway where inherited fear has been stored. So even as you're practicing, I want you to like start to experience this meridian point. You have pictures of it here that you saw. As you are doing this life nurse stretch, visualize this energy moving through there, and you're gonna start to sense it. Even though it's subtle, you will sense it. I've done that myself. So you're not stretching, you're opening the pathway. So daily restoration. If this feels like it's too much, then you can start by massaging the soles of your feet before bed. You can go on bare feet on earth, 2 to 10 minutes every day, and just always hydrate intentionally. And also remember that you can also start going to bed before 10 p.m., at least 3 nights this week. It has been very hard for me to do that in last week. I typically am up by like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. But the last week I have not been able to sleep as well. There's a lot of going on astrologically too with the eclipses and everything. So I think there's a lot of overstimulation and there's so much change that has happened that it's like our consciousness is trying to catch up. And that's why even when you do get 8 hours of sleep, you're so tired in the morning. So just make sure you're paying attention to that and that you are also keeping yourself super hydrated. And so, what today we talked about is we looked at the fifth body, which is the physical body. We looked at it from the energetic perspective because that's what it is. And we looked at the physical body as a sacred vessel that houses the soul. It is the living form through which your soul serves, where enlightenment, Satori, becomes embodied peace, not just a concept, where balance is the medicine and balance is different for everyone. You get to decide what that looks like for you, right? where resting and grounding and repetition become your superpower. There's no extremes here, no fanaticism, no performance. You are basically just moving into a wise teacher. And it carries through in how you live. And we also talked about how meridians are light energy pathways running through the fascia, through the breath, through the organs, and how they act as a group, how moving one can shift all of them. We looked specifically at the kidney meridians at the sole of your foot, carrying the water element, holding fear and deep life reserves that can be restored. And then the life nerve stretch is your direct access point too. The pathway that runs from the foot to the torso, right along the kidney meridians course. And we talked about how to actually clear that through the life nerve stretch. We looked at Jesus Christ perspective on the body, why it was made by the ego as a fence to keep love out. We looked at what happens when the mind chooses love as the body's purpose. And that is what you are all doing already, sovereign sisters. One breath at a time, one stretch at a time, one mantra that you're repeating, one spiritual devotion to Jesus' teachings, one generation at a time here in this physical body. So if this landed for you, I would love for you to come join us inside the Sovereign Sister Sanctuary. This is where we release trauma, chronic stress from the beautiful body, and where we learn how to use it for love again, where we allow the rivers to flow 7 generations before and after you, all with trauma-informed Kundalini yoga therapy and Christ consciousness teachings, devotional work. So you are not fixing anything as a reminder when you are healing. You are evolving past limiting patterns. And not only is that your birthright, it is how you reclaim your sovereignty. So you're ready for the journey? Check out the link below in my description. And of course, drop any comments in reference to the membership. It is very clear when you click on the link, the three different membership tiers. But if any questions arise, you can always post them here below. Now, I'd like to thank you as always for hitting that like button, for hitting that subscribe button, for sharing with your sisters, with your community. We're going to be back next week and we're going to be looking at the sixth body, which is known as the arc line. And in order for us to talk about the arc line, guess what we're going to talk about next week? The Akashic records and the illusion of time. And I'll be able to share with you quantum healing and how you heal 7 generations before and after you, and what it has to do with generational healing. So thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking. And thank you for choosing yourself as a cycle breaker in your lineage. I'll see you in the next episode. Sadhana.